Welcome to Flossed in Paradise! Actually, just welcome to another episode of Real Actors. This is the one that you all wanted. This is the one that you voted for. Surprisingly, I might add, this is the one that won. Gary Oldman. We are talking all things Gary Oldman. Me and my two co-hosts, just one co-host at the moment. The other one will join us momentarily, hopefully. So, usually, Becki, you're the other sister. Now you're the prominent sister.
I am honored to be not the other sister.
All right. And yeah, she said The Walking Deb will join us momentarily, like I said. So yeah, we're talking Gary. I mean, we put Gary Oldman up against Bill Murray, Edward Norton, and Johnny Depp. Were you as surprised as I was that Mr. Oldman won this?
You know what's funny is I'm not super surprised that he won. I am actually pleasantly I'm actually really happy and grateful that he won, because honestly, all the actors that were nominated, I would have been okay with any of them winning, to be completely honest. But it's been a pleasure for it to be Gary, so I'm happy about that.
Are you as over Gary Oldman as you were Natalie Portman towards the end of this?
No, actually, it's just the opposite. It's funny. I still have Natalie Portman fatigue syndrome, and I feel like I will have that for very many years to come. Like I would be fine never watching another Natalie Portman movie, but with Gary, it's like I couldn't get enough. So that's
you had Epstein Portman, basically.
Absolutely, Epstein Portman syndrome. Yes.
Man, that was a deep cut to our past, but that's what we do on this show. Yeah. So Gary Oldman, let's talk a little bit, and I'm kind of slow rolling into it because I want. The first movie on the list is one that The Walking Deb is a huge fan of, but just slow roll it just a little bit, as we do on Director's Cut. I like to talk about, when we're talking filmmakers, you talk about themes and stuff that you could kind of point out, and we could do that to a certain extent on Real Actors as well, because Gary Oldman definitely has signature roles, certain types of roles that he takes. Yeah, I mean, he's kind of like a Benicio del Toro in the fact that he's not the leading man in everything he's in, but what he is in, he makes that, the movie that much more rich.
I agree. I think, though, the difference between Benicio and Gary Oldman is that Gary is a heavyweight, where I don't feel, I as much as I love Benicio del Toro, I don't feel that he has that chameleon ability the way that Gary does. I mean, Gary Oldman can completely, his performances are completely immersive. Like, you forget you're watching Gary Oldman, whereas when we did Natalie Portman, like I said before, I never forget that I'm watching Natalie Portman, no matter whether she's doing a bad English accent or whatever it is. With Gary Oldman, whatever he's doing, I'm like, okay, he's that guy. Like, he's that character completely.
I think I didn't give him as much credit as maybe I should have before I started this kind of rabbit hole of rewatching and watching some of the Oldman films for the first time in prep for this, because, when I thought Gary Oldman, the first thing in my mind, I think he's a great villain. He is a bastard, and he does that so well. But then I was watching these roles, and I'm just like, oh God, he is a fantastic, not only a fantastic character actor, he's one of the best character screen actors that we've ever had.
I agree. And I think he does soft very well. He does endearing very well. He can be vulnerable and sort of take you there and tug at your heartstrings very easily. An amazing thing that I did during this time, I really delved more into him as a person in the interviews and his connection to the roles that he's played, which I didn't do with the other actors that we've reviewed before in the past as much. And I just... he's such a soft-spoken, sort of down-to-earth, very unaffected guy, but he has sort of this amazing, he's funny too. I mean, there's almost like an anecdote for everything for every story that he tells about every role, but he's very connected to all the roles and he chooses them very selectively. So that's what's really special about him. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. He's, and, again, just trying to slow roll it just a bit, but I will introduce that I am joined by a couple of tried and true favorites. This has made a cameo. This is almost becoming like a reoccurring guest on the show with me. I have the Left Hand Milk Stout Nitro, a couple of these. These are from Colorado, I think, something like that, but they're fantastic and they make the best sound when you open them. Oh yeah. So looking forward to that.
Very fancy of you.
It is very fancy. Last seen on the Ewan McGregor show that we did.
That's right. I again have my very fancy guest, water, agua. So that's my special guest this evening.
I almost wish that I did have water tonight because, again, Canada is still on fire and the air quality around the Pacific Northwest right now is just chokingly disgusting. Now you could literally see like smoke between you and someone else standing 5 feet away. So it's just great up here, let me tell you.
Yeah, wildfires on the West Coast right now are awful. I'm sorry to hear that you guys are breathing that in.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty. All right, so I think we slow rolled enough. Let's just kind of jump in, and of course we're not gonna. I mean, talk about an extensive list. There's no way that we're gonna be talking about every single Gary Oldman film on here, but we do have a good chunk, and I like this format because there's so many films, and I think all three of us kind of pick and choose different ones. And of course, I think, there's greatest hits that we're all going to talk about in depth. But let's start with the very first one. His very first film, his debut, I guess, is Remembrance, 1982. Did not see it.
I did not see Remembrance. No. Mm-mm.
Okay. So we're going to jump into, hopefully The Walking Deb could join us soon because we're going to jump into what I think is her favorite. And this is totally her era of music and everything. And that's Sid and Nancy. Wow. I haven't seen this. I didn't get a chance to rewatch this. I remember you wearing this movie out though when I was little, and I say that in a joking way, but it was absolutely great. Tell me, and you said you dug kind of deep with this one as far as behind the scenes. So why don't you start talking about Sid and Nancy?
Yeah, well, this film, and it's funny, it's sad that she's not here, but The Walking Deb, Debbie, is my older sister also, but she had a huge influence on some of the musical tastes and things that I obviously was interested because she's the big sister. And she was big into the Sex Pistols and all that. And it was a big impact on me. Now, when I watched Sid and Nancy, I don't know, when I first watched it, I was like 16, maybe 15, 16 years old. And it just was mind blowing at the time. And I hadn't watched it for many, many years. And then I rewatched it and it totally still holds up. I think, and I know that Debbie would agree with me that Nancy, we thought that before that she was cast illy or strangely. But after seeing the real Nancy Spungen in interviews and everything, we realized actually how great the casting was and how that actress pretty much nailed how obnoxious that Nancy really was in real life. But Gary, this was interesting to me because I watched obviously Sid Nancy, and then I found an interview with Gary talking about his role, taking the role as Sid Vicious. And he commented that he grew up very much inspired and moved by soul music and the sort of the funk and the Otis Redding's kind of, side of music. And then he was not influenced by punk at all, which is, of course, that's funny because he grew up in England, and you'd think at his age that he would have had something to do with or influenced somehow by the punk scene. But that is not the case. He had no interest in Sid Vicious. In fact, he could not understand why anybody would make a film about this guy who could not even play the guitar and had all these problems, and then wound up murdering his girlfriend, and then killing himself essentially. But he didn't connect with Sid Vicious at all. But his agent kept coming at him saying, "Man, look, you're young, you're still new. This is the role. You need to take this role." And so he took the role. And though he said he had no interest in playing Sid Vicious at all, he threw himself into the role just the same.
Yeah, and like you said, that was his. This movie came out in 83, I want to say. 80
I think it was 82.
82. Okay, so it's wow,
so
35 years old, and he was 25 when this came out because he just turned 60. And yeah, for someone that did not have anything to do or influenced by it, that's just kind of like what was to come from this man as far as character acting goes, because he does biopic very well, and Sid and Nancy is very much a biopic, and I totally get that. Like, if you think about, the upper echelon of the punk strata back in the day, because I think all three of us as siblings at different ages, we were born almost like a decade apart each. Debbie was kind of in that first wave. You were kind of in that second wave but you kind of went more of the new wave, like Depeche Mode, Cure, Smiths type thing. And then I was kind of in that 90s wave of like, Descendants, Blink-182, stuff like that. So all three of us, while very different, we all still, are very much entrenched in the whole, punk rock community and stuff like that. And seeing, and you think Sid Vicious, those first waivers, even the Ramones, how hollowed their name are, they're just awful. And Sid Vicious was just a complete, like, waste of life trash bag, and they all were. Like, all the Sex Pistols sucked. Nancy was just the worst person. But it made for a very entertaining movie. And I saw, looking at it at when this came out in the 80s, I thought it came out way later, even though that didn't make sense because I was watching this movie since I was in diapers. But it felt very current, and it felt for one of his second movie roles was just incredible.
I absolutely agree with that. I mean, as like you said, as disinterested as he may have been, he still killed it. Like, he still threw himself into it and killed it at a very, very early on in his career. And yeah, I mean, we've all been influenced. Now, I think it's interesting. I don't necessarily feel the same way you do about Sid per se. I don't feel like he was a complete garbage person. I think that there's kind of an endearing element to Sid. I was watching the interview. I was watching interviews with Sid and then his people that knew Sid, and they all say that he was actually a really nice person, like at his core, but he was very troubled. I mean, troubled upbringing. His mother was an addict. And then here comes Nancy, who was diagnosed paranoid schizophrenic at 15. I can't imagine what they were not giving her as treatment at 15 in the 60s and 70s, with schizophrenia. So
sure, yeah.
She was violent. She threatened her psychiatrist. She was already slicing her wrists with scissors. That all was happening long before she met Sid. She was already a hot mess, and I think she had a huge influence. She's basically the Yoko Ono of the Sex Pistols. I mean, that's the whole thing, right? I mean, she got in there. Johnny Rotten didn't like her. He wasn't doing heavy drugs. None of them were really doing heavy drugs except for Sid at that time. Of course, Johnny Rotten is not the most sane, lovely human being either. But at the same time, I think there was a part of him that was just really trying to look out for his friend and keep the band together. And she was toxic. She was a blister. And boy, did that backfire, right? I mean,
absolutely.
But Gary Oldman, I think he captures a little bit of that vulnerability of Sid Vicious himself, as well as that like goofiness of him. You know what I mean? He's just kind of this lanky puppy following her around looking for love, essentially.
Well, he also, like, I think Sid Vicious, and this is a conversation about Gary Oldman, but I mean, apparently we're going to the, a bio thing for the Sex Pistols, because Sid Vicious, I think, got too much credit for what he did with the Sex Pistols. Because, I mean, if you think about it, if you listen to Nevermind the Bollocks, Here's the Sex Pistols, their debut album, it's only him playing bass on a couple tracks because he really got sick and went deep into addiction and everything. During the recording of their debut album. So, everyone thinks of the Sex Pistols. Yeah, Sid Vicious, but he was definitely the least talented, musically of the group. He was the biggest loose cannon. But it lent itself, that story, it worked so well as a movie because it was like a real life, almost Romeo and Juliet kind of love story. And, who do you want in that kind of Shakespearean role? Well, you want Gary Oldman, and that wound up being so prophetic, even though back in the day he was not really a well-known actor, especially for that kind of role.
I agree. And I honestly, I can't imagine another person playing that role now. I think he nailed it. And I actually watched side by side, like a comparisons of Sid Vicious's behavior with clips of the performance from Gary Oldman, and he just absolutely nails it. And Sid Vicious was the pretty face. He was much better looking than Johnny Rotten.
Yeah.
And most of the time during their live performances, they didn't even plug in his bass. He was just standing there.
He was just kicking people in the front of the mosh pits.
Yeah, and like carving stuff in his own chest. And I mean, he was the show.
He was the mascot, I think, more than an actual performer or contributor. He was the mascot.
I agree.
All right. Well, as much as it kills me, we're gonna have to move on to our next movie. And when Deb jumps on, finally, we could always go back if she has something else to say that we didn't say.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's go. Let's fast forward to, and tell me if I skipped anything that you wanted to talk about, because we're skipping like a whole 10 years to Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, I have a lot. I mean, I could say a lot about this. This is another movie that I probably made you watch a lot. I don't remember if we were still living together when this was a thing, but I made it somebody watched it a lot because I having those gothy roots that I have and everything, this was obviously a film that appealed to me. However, I will say the casting is so weird in this movie. I think it's one of Winona Ryder's worst films. I think Keanu Reeves, I don't know who decided that this was a good idea to put him in this film. Because I literally 10,000 times while I watched it with his horrible English accent, another one, both of them, she and Keanu Reeves with their terrible accents, waiting for like Keanu Reeves to come out and go, dude, he's so right. You know what I mean? It's just like, whoa, yeah. Like, I actually think he was this close, or at least made some noise like that in that film.
He made a noise.
I'm telling you, like, I know that it was there. Oh, there she is. Hey!
Computer viruses are a bitch, but
well, tell your computer to stop fucking sleeping around.
Well, yeah. I can't control what that thing does. But
hey, so finally here is host of Walker Bites, voice actress on some other stuff, The Walking Deb.
Hi, everybody!
Yay!
Yay!
What does she have in her hand this week? Let's see.
Nothing. I cleared. Well, the area is not clear, so I'm kind of afraid. I do have things around me, but no, it's not going to happen.
I do like that buddy. What is that? A Buddy Jesus bobblehead in the background?
It is. It is Jesus bobblehead back there.
Fucking strong. All right. Well, we moved on. We already moved on from Sid and Nancy, but did you want to add anything? I don't know if you were watching.
Sid and Nancy, I've seen a million times, and it's one of my favorite movies. And I probably couldn't say anything you guys already haven't said about it. It's awesome. But I do have a special guest to introduce.
Yes, please.
I have a Stone Scorpion Bowl IPA.
Yeah.
And it's really, really, really yummy. And after this virus thing, I'm going to drink it really fast. But no, Sid and Nancy was awesome. I'm sure I couldn't add anything to it they already didn't say. So
well, real quick, because Becki and I kind of talked about just how all three of us are kind of entrenched in like the entire punk rock,
right?
Not lore so much. What am I trying to say? Community or whatever like that.
Scene-ish.
Yeah, whatever. You were there at the very beginning. Was there a rumor that you like went on a date or something with Henry Rollins? Was there any truth to that?
No, but I did meet some other people from some other bands. I didn't go on a date though, but I had some interesting experiences that I really couldn't get into here because some things are illegal. And
oh wow!
No, Henry Rollins. No, there's no Henry Rollins date. I wish there would have been. That would have been nice. I was actually second generation punk, so I was like right after the Sid and Nancy deal. That was like 12, I think, when that happened. But yeah, I have some stories, but I just couldn't. That's another show.
That's a late night show apparently,
or something.
Debbie's Punk Rock Adventures. All right. Yeah. So let's back to Bram Stoker's Dracula. Beck, you were saying, or yeah, we were just talking about how shitty Keanu Reeves was.
Right. Oh, please. That guy couldn't do an English accent if he had, and he was paid to do it, and he dropped it. He would like drop the accent like halfway through a sentence. That was the worst thing about that movie was I do like Keanu Reeves, but I don't like that accent.
Well, that was probably Coppola's direction. He's like, "Can you please just drop the accent?" And he's like, "Oh, come on, bro."
Then he pick it back up. I kept waiting for him to go, dude, and do like air guitar like from Bill and Ted.
I keep hearing how like wonderful a person Keanu Reeves is, and that's fine. I am all okay. Okay, but please just stop letting him make movies.
He has a tragic story too.
I know. I get it, man. But I just don't want to watch him in movies.
I want to.
I'm in some movies.
Yeah, like John Wick and
like
stuff
Bill and
like that.
Ted. Bill and Ted. That's it.
Constantine was excellent.
I like Constantine. And the one with Patrick Swayze when they're like bank robber surfers.
Oh God!
Point Break.
Stop it!
Don't you shit on Point Break?
I wouldn't shit on anything, but I don't have to shit on Point Break. Point Break is already a pile of caca. Like
they did a remake of that movie. That was even a bigger pile of shit.
That's what I heard. Yeah,
terrible.
We should do actors reel on Keanu Reeves.
No.
Well, that would be like real. I don't real something else because I don't know about actors. But.
Danny McBride. That's all I gotta say. Danny McBride.
Poor Keanu. Poor Keanu. All right.
Yeah. I mean, this movie. And you're probably right, Beck. I think we probably did watch this a lot, or at least I probably watched this a lot again when I was younger. But I watched it again last night, and it felt like I was watching it for the first time. It's visually so stunning. It's visually so great to look at. And you of all people could appreciate the practical effects, the makeup in this, the set pieces, the matte paintings, the miniatures. I mean, they had like scale models. It was just fantastic to look at, and just was like the worst performances ever from everyone across the board except for Gary Oldman.
I 100% agree. I think this movie is nothing short of epic. From the costume design to the hairdressing, the makeup, everything that you said, visually stunning, amazing, beautiful to look at, holds up to this day. I mean, I would never argue that at all. I mean, even with its like little moments that feel a bit like a cheap Obsession commercial or an Eternity commercial.
It did feel like a Chanel No. 9 commercial.
Yeah, Chanel No. 5.
Oh,
but
sorry.
That's okay. But yeah, it did. It felt like it had those little surreal moments that were just a little extra, I think. But overall, yeah, I mean, the makeup in this film is iconic. I mean, you know, the Gary Oldman makeup is iconic. And yeah, he was hot as fuck, pardon my French, but
he was. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, with the long hair and the little like the subtle fangs, and I mean that was everything obviously that was sexy about vampires, right? I mean, way more than any of this Twilight nonsense business.
Vampire
or Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt.
Oh, I can't, please. Don't even get me started on that one.
I remember how mad you were because I remember this always digresses to fucking, you know, memory lane, but I remember you just reading like Interview with the Vampire, and then like and then the movie came out and you're like, fucking Tom Cruise is Lestat.
Right. I have always had I have never liked Tom Cruise, and that I gotta stop. Because this is gonna be a whole other show, and I know Debbie feels the same way because Debbie's the one that was way into Anne Rice way more than I was.
I read the whole series, series of books, and then they tell me Tom Cruise. I'm like, oh, just kill me now.
Right?
Fucking kidding me. Then they had Antonio Banderas, the long hair and the fingernails, and then Brad Pitt was like Malibu Barbie. I just couldn't.
Kirsten Dunst was the shit in that movie, though.
She was.
She was
good.
All right. Man, we're all over the place.
I like drag.
Return.
Centered. No, the makeup was amazing. Everything.
See me now.
Except for Keanu Reeves and another writer, and I could do without both of them very easily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Eric from the chat had a great point. Anthony Hopkins, I think, was great as Van Helsing in this.
Yeah. I think he's a natural Van Helsing.
Wasn't that Fury always in there too?
He actually did fine.
Yeah.
They weren't trying to make him a weird American because he is kind of the Keanu when he's doing an American accent, like in The Crush. Ooh.
Oh, that was bad. That was real bad.
I didn't see.
I hear little voices.
I know. I'm interacting with not only the chat but a little chat right in front of me.
I can hear it.
She's very cute. All right. Yeah. I mean, the costumes in this were great. Everyone was acting like it was a Broadway play. where, you know, in a Coppola film, Francis Ford Coppola film, that it kind of lends to that. And the subject matter, yes, but I mean, the story of this film was just miscast at like 90% of it, except Hopkins and Oldman. Everyone else had no business being on that screen. And it's just tragic because think about how much like time and effort, and you know, it's a Francis Ford Coppola film, how fantastic it looked and everything. And then it just kind of came out like a wet fart. It was just kind of bad, right? Like, I couldn't take it seriously.
No, you have to wonder how it was Francis Ford Coppola. How did that casting get by him? How did he not notice
because it was the 90s. It was the 90s. So I mean, like that's you know, Winona was the shit in the 90s, and you know, I don't know about Keanu, but I mean,
oh sure he was, yeah.
I mean, Winona though was the biggest deal. I mean, she was the one that was like the gothy queen of the screen back then, you know. And she was doing like Edward Scissorhands and Beetlejuice. And
I like her in Beetlejuice, but yeah.
Right. But that's what she was good at. But then they give her this role where she actually has to act like somebody else, and not just, and it just didn't work out.
She's like a Christina Ricci or whatever, where I don't think they should ever be cast as like sexy roles. And this was you were supposed to have some kind of like bombshell in this. I mean, this is, you know, Dracula of all people is trying to, you know, multi-generational trying to get with this girl, and it's just Winona Ryder. I don't know. It was just, I don't know.
Well, I thought the girl that played Lucy, I don't know the actress's name, but I thought she did a great job.
I liked her too.
I really liked Lucy.
Yeah, but some terrifying set pieces, like, or some sequences, like where she actually turns and they're down the sarcophagus and she brings down that little child. I mean, it was crazy. That's what's so frustrating. It was so such a dichotomy of greatness and just bullshit, and it just pissed me off.
Although I watched it like a million times because I had to. I mean, sure. I just did, and I had to just get past the Keanu Reeves and part. Just forget that.
I do like just I gotta slide this in. I like Winona in Stranger Things. I think I
absolutely.
I didn't even recognize her in the and then I said, oh my god, that's Winona Ryder, and I think she's fantastic in Stranger Things. Well, I'll give her that.
She grew up and she got, I like her better now.
But again, this isn't even a dig on Winona Ryder as an actress. It was just, it's a dig on the casting. It was just, she shouldn't have been in this film.
I agree. Agreed.
All right. Let's go to, okay, Deb, since you came in late, but this is another one, I think your probably favorite performance from Gary Oldman, and that's the role of Drexel from True Romance.
I love that movie anyway. And everyone kicks that movie because it was Tarantino wrote it, but didn't direct it, and everyone talks down about it. I love that whole movie.
Who the hell talks down about this film?
Plenty of people that I don't know, idiots. But the role of Drexel was awesome. Gary Oldman was so amazing. I mean, he was like so immersed in he was like a white guy who thought he was a black guy. And the whole part where he asked the one guy, you know, do you think it's White Boy Day? Is this White Boy Day? I love that. I love that That's one of my favorite movies, and he's my favorite thing in that movie. And I wish he had more than 20 minutes of screen time because he was badass.
He was trying to be a Jamaican guy. He wasn't just like a normal black guy.
Reds. He had a gold front tooth. And he was amazing. I mean, him and Christian Slater, the scene they had together was like, it was beautiful. I mean, it was beautifully done. The casting was great in that movie, I thought. But yeah, I wish he would have had more than 2 minutes. He had more screen time than Samuel L. Jackson got, which was interesting. But no, he was again, makeup, and he's so transformative. I mean, in every movie almost every movie he's in, he's so easily become someone else. Which he did in this movie too. Love him in this.
Becki, what's a quick synopsis of True Romance?
I'm hearing echoes. The synopsis, obviously, it's a guy who's like kind of just an average guy who's obsessed with Elvis, and he gets involved with this girl, kind of randomly, absolutely randomly, in a movie theater, and he basically falls in love with her, and she's a call girl, and he kills his pimp, and then the adventure starts from there. I mean, just to sum it all up very quickly. So they fall madly in love, and then he finds out that her pimp like kind of smacked her around. Her pimp is played by Gary Oldman, who is Drexel, and he goes and kills the pimp, and then Christopher Walken gets involved and all that fun stuff.
Oh,
and,
yeah, that's
but I love Gary Oldman in this role. He is so like nom. I just want to like, I love his performance so much. Like, I'm so upset at this movie only because there's not enough of him in it.
I agree.
Like, I mean, this movie obviously is a cult classic. We all come from that. We were all cut from the same cloth, people that love this movie. It's kind of like baby Pulp Fiction meets baby Reservoirs.
Yep.
Reservoir Dogs. And
no, just Baby Reservoirs. I want to see that movie.
Baby Reservoirs. But that's what I love about this movie. It's that it's like the beginning of this whole genre created by Tarantino, obviously, or like almost like revived by Tarantino. And it's just so fun. It's just a fun movie. I loved Christian Slater back then. He was the Winona Ryder of that time. He was
That's
like
fair.
the gothy king, on screen, with Heathers and Pump Up the Volume, and he played all these like sort of dark brooding. I remember
the Cube.
Gleaming the Cube. I made you watch like all the time, and we like my best friend Chris from high school. He and I still quote that movie because it was so weird that we watched it like every day after school. But yeah, I was in love with Christian Slater, and then I realized that when he started to take big boy roles, he couldn't really act his way out of a paper bag. He's kind of a one trick pony. Christian Slater.
Well, he has that Jack Nicholson thing. He always had that Jack Nicholson.
He did.
Wow.
And he cashed in on that, but that doesn't work for him anymore.
No.
Because ultimately, when he grew up to be his own grown up, it was cute when this young kid was being Jack Nicholson-y, but it's not cute when this guy that can't really act all that well is still trying to cash in on the Jack Nicholson thing, and it's not working for him anymore because he's just kind of this older, middle-aged guy that's weird. But I think the contrast between Christian Slater and Gary Oldman, who you can really see who the big dog is in that scene, who really brought the big boy pants to the party there.
Oh yeah, Christian Slater took no shit from him. He didn't care. He didn't give a damn.
No, but I mean acting wise.
Yeah,
when you see,
for
you know what I mean? The contrast between Christian Slater and Gary Oldman's performance in the same scene. It's like, oh, now we know who the big dog is.
I don't know. I think in all fairness, I think that, he did better than a Keanu would. We're just Keanu, but
anybody would have done better than Keanu.
I mean, they put Christian Slater up against some like high caliber talent in this film, which you think about the people in this film. Christopher Walken, I keep saying Chris Cooper,
Dennis Hopper.
Dennis Hopper, thank you. I don't know why I say Cooper all the time. Dennis Hopper, James Gandolfini. I mean, all these roles were just so amazing, and these actors were so amazing. And the great thing about this is they all had their moments to shine in this. The scene with Dennis Hopper and Christopher Walken is like, that should be iconic. Like, that should be what people talk about.
The dialogue in that scene is just insane. Like, it still like gets you in the guts when you watch it.
What gets me is that moment with when he's talking to Christopher Walken, and who I love Christopher Walken so much, and where Dennis Hopper realizes, you can see it in his face, he realizes he's gonna die. When he asks for that cigarette, he says, "Can I have that Chesterfield now?" Because he knows he's dead, and it's so amazing. You can see his face, and that was like one of the best scenes ever in any movie ever.
I think it's funny that he's just gone too. Christopher Walken's just not in the movie anymore after that.
No, that was it. One scene.
Yeah.
He only needs one. That's all he needed. He was so big that one scene he really didn't need to be in it anymore.
Man, yeah, it was like his Pulp Fiction scene where he's just talking about shoving the stopwatch up your ass or whatever.
Yeah,
the pocket watch.
He only needs one scene, and he takes it. He takes it.
You got to shove it up your ass. It's just, it's just.
Is that Walken or was that Rodney Dangerfield? I'm a little.
How come I don't get any respect on my own show? Oh man,
don't get no respect.
I don't get no respect on here. No, but I'm all flustered because I'm thinking about, I do not find any of the Arquettes attractive whatsoever. Female, male, or, female, male, which sadly she's no longer with us. I don't know. I just not an Arquette kind of person. I don't even really like them as actors, actresses for the most part. Man, Patty Arquette after this, Debbie, like I immediately I jumped on our little messenger board and I'm like, Patricia Arquette's hot.
And only in that one movie, though. Only in that movie.
Only in that one, yeah, absolutely. But she just was, and she was great. She did a fantastic job. That scene with her and James Gandolfini was amazing.
Oh,
when she beat his ass in the end.
Oh my god. She's just like, he throws her through the glass in the shower, and she's just like screaming, "Wait a second!" He's like, "What?" Like it was so real and so Quentin Tarantino.
Laughing at him. She's laughing at him. She's flipping him off. She's telling him "fuck you," and he's beating her ass, and it's like, oh my god, that girl has some balls.
That was a beautiful scene, and it's probably my favorite thing because she's always very monotone and she talks like this, and like every role she ever plays, she's
boring.
She's so boring. And then she had that Ghost Whisperer show that was for a while. I can't remember what it was called, but that scene, is amazing. Like it's just and it goes on forever. It's just like she's taking this beating. It's awesome. I love it.
And then she smacks him over the head with the toilet thing. It's over. It's like, oh my god, I love that. There's so many scenes in that I just loved. So many scenes that I loved.
And this is I'm jumping off the path, because there's just so many people to talk about in this film. But going kind of scaling back to Oldman specifically, and yes, this was a very Frankie Four Fingers kind of role, like Benicio del Toro in Snatch. And I keep bringing up BDT because he has similar roles to Oldman, and like Becki said at the beginning of this conversation, the difference is Gary Oldman can take the reins and kind of make it his own thing. But this was a very this was just him sprinkled in, and just one of the most memorable roles cinematically. And he was only in there for maybe 10 minutes total screen time. He just completely transformed. He had the best look. He had the best costume design. There's so much story there, to the gold tooth, to the dreadlocks, to his eye being fucked up. There was just so much there. And you just wanted more. And that's the story of true romance, is you wanted more from absolutely everything. Michael Rappaport, again, just being Michael Rappaport. Yeah. He and I've seen an interview with him on Collider where he said that no matter what he's done, no matter what he does, that will always be the favorite thing that he's ever been involved in.
I wanted a whole Drexel movie. I wanted a whole movie about Drexel and his past and like backstory. And
a Drexel prequel.
I would have loved a scene between Christopher Walken and Gary Oldman, those two characters, where we get to see the dynamic, the true dynamic in its true form between those two characters. That would have been a really fun scene. And I think that's the scene we would have really been talking about today.
It's like a Better Call Saul, but for true romance.
I mean, how that even works, I'm thinking about that right now. That would be like, I can't even imagine. That'd be crazy. It'd be great. It'd be so like different and interesting. Those two and those characters. That'd be great.
So the next film that came out in the same year, and Becki, I think you said this was his breakout role, and that's Romeo is Bleeding.
Right. You know what's funny about this is I remember. I mean, I was young when this movie came out, but I just remember the trailer being on TV like every 5 minutes for Romeo's Bleeding. I knew that trailer like from start to finish, and I had no interest in seeing the film at all because I was like, I wasn't old enough to really care, or just didn't speak to me. And then when I finally saw it, it's fun. It's definitely not. I think that it put him on the map though, more than as like a actor. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But was Romeo's Bleeding was after Dracula?
Yes.
No, yeah, it was after Dracula? Really?
Yep.
Oh wow. Then my brain is just
I thought it was before Dracula.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah, no, Bram Stoker's Dracula came out in 92. True Romance and Romeo's Bleeding came out in 93.
And I am wrong. That is definitely not his breakout role. Obviously, he was already on the map from Dracula.
Right.
But Romeo's Bleeding was fun. I think that it wasn't. I didn't love it. It's not my favorite. What's her name? Nina Olin? Is that her name? Yeah. I mean, that was a big role for her because there weren't a lot of like female villain like leads back then, and so she got a lot of attention for that role. I know. But Lena Olin, something.
Yeah,
like that. Anyway.
Lena Olin. Yes.
Lena Olin. Yeah, but I'm like I said, it's kind of a fun throwback and tribute or homage, if you will, to film noir. But I don't have much to say about it other than that. Wasn't like amazing.
It was fun. It was
It was
fun.
fun.
I'd never seen it before. I saw it yesterday.
Yeah.
I'd heard about it, and I just never, I don't know, I just never went there. But it was fun. I liked it. I didn't.
So if you just watch it, what's it about, real quick?
He's narrating basically his own life, and you don't really know it in the beginning, but you kind of do because you see him, and then you see who he's talking about. It's about a cop that goes kind of crooked and gets involved with that woman, and she's great in that. I mean, she's like one of the best female villains, and she's completely psychotic. And he just screws up every day.
Yeah, he's an idiot.
He lets his penis run his mind, and that's what his problem is in that movie. And it gets
what we tend to do.
That's another show. And it gets him in more trouble than anything. And he ends up with his protection and running a convenience store, waiting for his wife to come December 1st and May 1st. December 1st is my birthday, so I'm like, yeah, that's kind of cool. But no, that was basically it. He's just narrating his life and how he got to be where he is now. And he's waiting for his wife who never comes. Never.
Okay. Yeah, I did not see this film. I wanted to. I heard good things about it. I wasn't even really. Let's see, it came out in '93, so I mean, I was pretty young to even really be aware of it. I think the funny thing is, the only thing I remember about this film is, like Becki, you said that the commercials would constantly play because that was when like everything had epic movie guy voice, and I remember Romeo was bleeding, rated R, you know.
Yeah, it was big, but however, it did not do well at box office. The critics did not like it. It did not get good reviews. And it's very specifically stylistic. It's like I said, it was an attempt to reboot, I think, film noir, or at least an homage to it, and it does that okay. I mean, I think if you're not actually watching black and white, old-timey film noir, it just comes across as like cheesy and gratuitous. And even though those films were cheesy and gratuitous, it works at its root, but it doesn't really work like when it's watered down, like second, third generational kind of genre.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? Like if I'm watching private eye movies from the 40s, I want to watch private eye movies from the 40s. I don't want to watch 90s remakes of private eye movies from the 40s. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there's exceptions to the rule, like Zodiac or something from David Fincher. But yeah, I totally get what you're seeing, where no one did it better but the people that were in that kind of era and time frame.
Right. Agreed.
Sure. All right, let's go to well, actually, yeah, Becki, why don't you keep the baton because we're talking about the Scarlet Letter.
Scarlet Letter, I'm gonna say haven't rewatched, but I do remember. Who was the lead female though? Was that
Demi Moore?
Demi Moore, that's right. Okay, yes. I kind of liked Demi back then a little bit. I mean, I had no beef with her. I think at some point I just went, that's enough for her already. But
so did everyone else.
When's
the last Demi Moore film? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Gary's performance in this film was obviously great. This is another film where it was interesting to see him not play a villain. Yeah. Where he has kind of a vulnerable side, and he's very sweet, and he's like caring, and we get to see a not so esoteric Gary Oldman in this film. And so I think seeing him on screen in Love was very satisfying. But it's one of those period films where I think that these films are very subjective. I think movies like this genre specifically are subjective. I think you really either have to love that genre or you don't. And if you don't like period pieces, you're not going to like this movie.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
What did you think about it, Deb? Did you get a chance to rewatch it?
Oh yeah, I watched like 15 movies in preparation for this. And there's another like 7 or 8 movies that I'd seen way back when, but I rewatched The Scarlet Letter. It was nice to see him play someone with a heart. I mean, they do typecast him as a villain more than not a villain in a lot of his movies. Not all of them. I mean, he's like the Batman movies, he's not a villain, whatever. But I like seeing him vulnerable. I like seeing he was sexy as hell in that movie. Becki, I'm sure Becki will agree with me on that one.
I agree with you with that. I share that sentiment most of the time.
Yeah,
especially it's Drexel, right?
Drexel was not sexy.
He was not sexy.
He was not sexy. But it was nice to see him have a soft side, and he played it. He was a minister. I mean, he was part of a scandal. Oh my God, it was great. He was great. I don't know if the movie itself was great.
I think it was fine. It was kind of like a step. It was like a Red Shoe Diaries version of like a Lifetime film, in my opinion. I think that his role was very reminiscent of his portrayal of young Dracula in Dracula. It was kind of like him as a human and not so intense. It was kind of like the same kind of style and period piece. Maybe that was just me not being able to separate the two. But I just felt like I was watching the same character a little bit, but just like a good, more muted side. This was when Gary Oldman was like super sex symbol Gary Oldman and not, playing like 80-year-old Winston Churchill Gary Oldman. So I mean, this was for the time that he was kind of they were trying to make him like that kind of Pierce Brosnan type, sex symbol, and it worked for a little bit, but I don't know. I don't have much to say about it. I didn't rewatch it recently. I just remember watching it back in the day with, I believe our mother made me watch this with her. So there you go.
She made you watch it with her. She used to make us watch things with her all the time.
Yeah.
But family therapy time. Anyway.
Let's skip. Does anyone else have anything to say about Scarlet Letter before we skip?
I want to say one quick thing.
Yeah.
I think it was a stepping stone on the way. I mean, all his movies back then were a stepping stone on his way to becoming the great actor that he is now. I mean, it was just like he tried different genres of. I love the period pieces. I love Romeo's Bleeding. I mean, I love them all, but they're all like a stepping stone on the way to him becoming what he is now, which is this amazing, transformative actor who does music videos and who does, I don't know if we've talked about that yet, but
we have not.
We have not. Okay, and has done that one short on YouTube, and I mean, he does amazing things now. I mean, they're all the stepping stones, and that one was a big stepping stone for him. I don't know why. I think that it kind of was. Anyway, okay, I'm done with that one too.
But my co-host is in the chat from 10th Street Hooligans, Johnny Slivers. He said that he's like, Gary Oldman he's averaged 3 movies per year for the last 10 years. Like, that's a lot. And especially with these very submersive roles. I mean, that's a lot to put on your body. Everyone thinks character actors, period piece actors. You think Daniel Day-Lewis, and rightfully so, but Gary Oldman, I think, should get a little bit more love as far as that kind of things go. But the next film, is hot because it's The Fifth Element.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Oh, man. I love The Fifth Element. I don't care. I'm a big dope. I'm a big dork. I don't care.
Everyone loves The Fifth Element.
I just lost all of my credibility as a movie critic. Yeah, right. Like I had any anyways. But I just rewatched it again today. I'm like, what? I could watch Romeo's Bleeding, or I could rewatch Sid and Nancy. No, fuck it. I'm just gonna put on The Fifth Element and cook eggs. Like, because that's what The Fifth Element is. You just put it on. It's background noise. You could quote everything in the back of your head, and this was so important, in my opinion, especially for Gary Oldman, because this shows he's a fantastic comedic actor. Yes, he is a bastard. He's a villain in this role of Zorg, but he is just chewing the scenery. It's another character role. The costume is absolutely fantastic in this film for him, and he's doing just this like little Southern, year 3000 businessman, this like oil tycoon type person. He's just the biggest slime ball, and he's completely self-aware of it. And this, like I do every time we do one of these shows, I put out the Twitter poll. What's your favorite Gary Oldman performance? This one squeaked by it. It wasn't Runaway or anything, but this one did win the Twitter poll for everyone's favorite Gary Oldman role. I don't think this was his best role, acting wise by any means, but he was having a blast with this role, as was everyone else in this film. Even like dead fish Bruce Willis was great in this role. He was actually giving it his all. Chris Tucker this is my favorite Chris Tucker ever, even above Smokey from Friday. Talk about putting someone on the map. No one knew who the hell Mila Jovovich was before the role of Lilu. I know friends that named their kids Lilu after this film. It's a big, dopey, dumbass movie, but I don't care. I love it. I'll die on this hill.
What's funny, he did an interview with Playboy where he said he hated making that movie.
I don't care.
He hated it. Yeah, here's the question. Okay, here's like a little question. Do you know what his real name? I mean, he's no Zorg. What was his full name in the movie? You know?
Oh, he says it right when he meets Ian Holmes' character as the priest, but I don't remember.
John Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg.
Look at you.
But yeah, I had to do that. But no, it was good to see him in a comedic role, and that Southern accent was great, and the little hair, and it was a fun movie. It was fluff, but it was fun.
Oh, it's so much fluff. It's nothing but stuff.
Bruce Willis could, I don't care. Anyone could have played that role. It didn't matter who it was. It could have.
No, I disagree. That was Bruce Willis playing a parody Bruce Willis.
He always plays a parody of himself. I mean,
that's a very important question. Hold up. I have a very important question. I'd like to know where Bruce Willis got his very revealing orange tank top with the back cut out. Is it like one of
his sexy outfit
stores in Las Vegas on Sahara Boulevard where all the strippers get and the hookers get their outfits from?
Sure.
All I could think of the whole time, I'm like, so if we go into the future, what wife beats are going to look like in the future? They're going to look like little backwards, like tight little stripper outfits. Like, ooh.
God, I hope not. I hope not. That's horrible.
That whole movie. Okay, here's my thing. I think the movie's fun. Like what Jonathan said, it's fluff. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But who cares? It's fun. As far as Gary Oldman's performance, there is no better reveal of a character in my mind than when he turns around and he has that bald part of his head and
yes.
he turns around, his hair is flipping. Every time he would whip his head around, his hair flipped in that movie, I'd die. I would die. How to work makeup so freaking well. He is literally my favorite actor to watch in makeup and costume because he just totally
he works it.
I mean, he's hilarious with the buck teeth and that. Oh, I can't. It's so true. I don't like that movie really. Generally speaking, I'm not woo, Fifth Element. I'm ugh, Bruce Willis, because you guys know how I feel about Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis is terrible, but in that role, he's fine.
But I had to watch Cop Out, and I didn't even get to do the show about Cop Out, which was awful. So I just watched it for no reason. So I just have that now.
Joke's on you.
I didn't have to watch it, thank God.
Oh my God! And Gary Oldman has the best one-liners in this. Everyone's in the chat just literally screaming one-liners. Just I'm very disappointed.
Great one-liners.
There's no scene between Bruce Willis and Gary Oldman. They never meet each other in the movie.
That's true.
I was gonna say that. Oh, good. Yes, thank you. Zorg only meets Mila Jovovich. He only meets Lilu.
Right.
Yeah.
Bruce Willis and Gary Oldman never meet in that movie.
That's too bad, though. That would have been interesting if they would have.
I didn't notice it at first. Actually, Micah, my boyfriend, he was watching with me because he loves that movie, and he was all giggles and super happy when we were watching. He was the one that pointed out to me. He's like, "Did you notice that Bruce Willis and Gary Oldman never meet?" I was like, "Oh my God."
That's kind of weird that they don't. It's kind of odd they don't meet.
Oh, it's so good though. I just love it because it's almost like a bad heist film where it's just your enemies of your enemies are still your enemies type thing where, it's everyone's kind of trying to do this specific goal because the big planet is going to go crash into the Earth, but everyone's just kind of stepping on each other's toes. It's like Snatch. It's like watching Snatch, but in space. It's so good. Eric from the chat said he named his child Corbin after the role. So man,
wow.
Good on you. And then I think our MTG strategist said Chris Tucker should have won an Oscar for that role.
That's the only role that I love Chris Tucker in. I'm not a big Chris Tucker fan, but he was so fun in that role.
Oh my God, Corbin, my man.
I was in love with all his off the shoulder ensembles.
So flamboyant in that movie.
It's just, but yeah, Gary Oldman's just so great in that. I mean, he is the human personification of what a penis would actually look like in that film.
With a southern accent, a penis with a southern accent.
Well, yeah, because all penises should have southern accents.
I agree. That's true. That's a good point. I'll remember that. That's good.
Hey,
telling.
That one's free. All right, next one. Let's go to. I mean, did anyone see Air Force One or Lost in Space or want to talk about it? I didn't watch either of them.
I saw Lost in Space years ago, and it was a boring movie. It was. He played what is it? What is he? The scientist guy?
Dr. Zachary Smith.
Yeah, Dr. Smith, and Dr. Smith is a hated character anyway, and he did a good job as that. But it's been years since I've seen it, but I did see it, and again, he did a good job in the movie, but no one else did.
Okay, Becki, anything?
I did not see Lost in Space. I saw Air Force One, sadly, in the movie theater for some reason. Maybe it was a date or something.
Yikes.
Yeah, and I got nothing to say about Air Force One other than I just think it was stupid.
I don't remember him even being in Air Force One. That's how much I remember Air Force One.
Tried to put Air Force One out of my mind. There's no reason to remember that film. Come on.
I forgot it already. I saw it.
His name was Igor Kroshinov, so apparently he played a Russian man.
Bad guy, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Of course he was a bad guy.
Of course.
Of course, yeah. I mean,
sure. I saw it, but I have no recollection of what anybody did. So
The Contender.
Ran around on a plane and got hurt. Probably had a cut over his eye at some point, and then that was over.
Yeah.
Anyone see The Contender?
Yeah.
I have so many things to feel about this movie right now.
All right, let's do it.
All right. The Contender, if you guys don't know, it was a political film, obviously. It was about a president who was played by Jeff Bridges and lost his vice president to death somehow, I don't know, and chooses this woman to be his vice president. And then the rest of the film is pretty much about her at her confirmation hearing, and this Republican piece of shit dude who doesn't want her to be the vice president. And he's like this crooked Republican congressman who, surprise, surprise.
Oh, God.
He's trying to thwart her the whole time. Like, that's pretty much thwart her vice presidency.
Discredit her. Yeah.
He has ties to this other dude who's super crooked and paid to have this woman jump off a bridge and like stage him saving her. But unfortunately, he misses and she drowns and dies. So the moral of the story in this particular film is that women should be empowered, and there's a double standard for women in politics. Okay, look, I would call myself like a moderate feminist, I guess. I am all about feminist causes. I'm all about having women in power and all that stuff, even though I just on the record, I'm not a Hillary Clinton fan.
Oh, God.
But I say this just because there are some parallels. I mean, we all just witnessed one of the worst presidential elections in our American history. I'm not a Trump fan. I was a Bernie person, so that's me. But anyway, with that said, I do see parallels which is really funny because this was made in 2000, I think.
Hang on, let me see.
Tender was 2000.
I didn't watch the film, so the least I could do is get that information for you. 2000, yes.
So it's really weird and scary how there are some parallels to the Hillary campaign and this woman's campaign in the film, and sort of the now. I think the film is so poor. It's so poorly written. It's so poorly acted. It's not good by any means. I think what's sad is that at the core, the message of this film is a noble one. I think it's an honorable, moral message. Obviously, there are double standards. I don't care who you are. You cannot, deny that.
Sure.
And that's what the film was trying to convey. It did not do well at that at all. It was actually a terrible flop. I think it cost $20 million to make, and it only made $17 million at the box office. But I will say and speak to getting back on track, because I could go on my soapbox on this tangent about this film all day, just because I just feel a lot of things. Gary Oldman's performance in this film is this slimy, disgusting, nasty little Republican with his own selfish agenda, who is not worldly, who is a piece of shit, will do anything to get his way, is so good. Like, he's so good. And that's to say, he's got this curly little wig on, and he lost weight.
His hair is horrible. He looks horrible.
He looks, he's like this pinchy little fucker. And he's so good. I just love him in this movie, and he's the only good thing. I will say that I did like Jeff Bridges as I liked his performance. I enjoyed it. But what was distracting me a lot was Sam Elliott is also in the film, and he has
no mustache. He had no upper lip. I'm like, where is that upper? He has an upper lip.
I'm just staring at Sam Elliott going, I can see Sam Elliott's upper lip. Yeah, totally creeping me out. But aside from that, Gary Oldman is phenomenal in this film. It's the only good thing about this movie. Yeah. Everything else was horrible, and I'm still having nightmares about Sam Elliott with no mustache.
Well, Christian Slater was in that movie too, and he was kind of like tofu. I mean, he was like
he was
like, I didn't even care. He didn't even matter. He was like so nothing in that movie at all. But I agree with you, Beck. Gary Oldman's role as a slimy, nasty Republican was great. And they made him look like a slimy, nasty Republican, even though I'm being really bad by even stereotypically saying that slimy Republicans look like Gary Oldman in that movie. But they do. Then he had the wig, and he was disgusting. He played disgusting so well.
Are we saying that all Republicans wear wigs?
No, we're not saying anything bad about anybody. We're neutral on this show. Right?
Whatever. It's my show. We don't have to be. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't see it. I wanted to see it. Just ran out of time. It sounds like he did pretty good though.
He didn't do anything really. No, they didn't. It could have been done so well. They could have really taken that and done a really great job with that. And they didn't. They just screwed it up. They really, really screwed it up. But Gary Oldman did play his part as usual beautifully. I mean, he was great.
How about Hannibal? Did anyone see Hannibal?
I didn't even know that was him in Hannibal.
Well, it's an uncredited role, so I mean, you're not.
Times, and I never realized he played the Mason guy. I didn't even know because again, the makeup. He's the guy who put the makeup on, and he's just the guy. I had no idea it was him. Now that I know it's him, I did watch it again. And he does a beautiful job. I mean, he does an amazing job, and the makeup in that is just so incredible. I mean, he was talking about in an interview. It was like 6 or 7 hours in the chair every day, and you couldn't recognize him. And I love that movie. I love that whole series of movies. I love Anthony Hopkins in that. I love that whole series. And as he as Mason, he was wonderful. And I had no idea until not 2 nights ago that was even him. Because Becki told me that was him, and I'm like, wow, I had no clue.
Yeah, I've only seen Silence of the Lambs in that entire film series, so I didn't get to see Hannibal or Red Dragon, but it's definitely on my to-do list. I know Hannibal, the series, was something that I was really into. Becki, did you see Hannibal?
I did. I was a big fan of the series also, but I love them. I don't like Julianne Moore. I think she's terrible, but I really like, I don't like her. She's terrible and everything, but I do love him as Mason Bridger. I think he's amazing as Mason Bridger. And again, yeah, like Debbie said, he rocks that makeup, and I think it's even better that he's uncredited. I think it's even more like amazing.
Why did they credit him? They didn't credit him at all.
Think about Gary Oldman. I think that I swear he does all these little tiny projects, and I feel like he just has friends, and he's like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like because I think he loves what he does. I think he's one of those actors that is so just passionate about his art, and he just lives for it. And you can tell in every film. I feel like every film, it's that thing. So I don't even think I think he was just like, dude, I don't care. I'll do it because it's awesome. I just want to do it. So I'll sit in makeup for 4 hours and have this prosthetic put on my face for 4 hours and not even be credited. I'm not saying he wasn't paid. I'm just saying he wasn't credited. And so I think that he does these things because he loves what he does.
Yeah, I agree. And the ending, he went down bad at the end. I mean, his death was awful.
It's so good.
It was great though. Those nasty pigs. It was, oh my God, it was incredible.
I love it.
Nice. What?
Oh, that's it.
Okay. Now the next one we're gonna talk about a series of films, and that's his role in the Harry Potter films, the Sirius Black. Who wants to start off with Harry Potter films?
I will. I intentionally avoided Harry Potter films for years because I really decided, without seeing them, that I really had no interest. My daughter made me watch the first one, and I'm like, Then I watched the second one, and then she left, and I ended up watching the whole series like in 2 days, and I was a crying mess in the end, and I ended up loving them. And he was so cool. He was so great in that. He was such a sweetheart, and he was kind of didn't look that all like him as much as he did in other movies, but no, he was. I loved his role in all those. And when I think he died. Did he die in that?
Spoiler alert!
Oh, this whole show is a spoiler.
I know. I'm just kidding. Yeah,
but it was sad. I mean, but he was great. He was fun, and the movies were fun. I ended up against my inner hatred of it. I ended up loving that whole series of movies.
I didn't watch the film, or I'm sorry, I didn't read the books, so I didn't care because I think everyone that read the books are just like, oh God, the films are terrible. And I'm just like, okay, so I'm just not going to read the books then. So I watched the films, and I think they're all pretty great. I think they're all pretty good I think they get better because I think that this is the only like kid series that dares to crank up the adult content as much as it does, because I think that, you watch the Sorcerer's Stone, and yes, towards the end, and you see, Voldemort's face pop out of the back of the guy's head, that's kind of a scary image. But for the most part, Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets are kid films, right? You bring your 5-year-old or whatever, and then you get to Prisoner of Azkaban.
No kids, yeah.
Oh my God, Alfonso Cuarón. We just talked about this on the last director's cut, but he turned this into a horror film. This was a straight up horror film set in a fantasy setting. This had some of the best werewolf transformation effects, even though, and I said this last week, but it was very reminiscent to American Werewolf in London, even though those were more practical and makeup. This was very much effective and terrifying, especially for children of that age. The Dementors are great. And I love that they played on the audience, kind of the audience's parents' preconceived notions of Gary Oldman, because at the very beginning, if you're not initiated to the series like I was not, you think Sirius Black is there to go and kill Harry Potter. You think that he is this madman. He is just out to eliminate him, even when you find out that he's his uncle and all this stuff. And of course, they pander to the audience saying that, yeah, it's Gary Oldman. Here's another villain. Who are you going to cast in a villain role like this? You're going to put Gary Oldman in there. So when the reveal comes around and he turns out to be this giant sweetheart, I think was brilliant. I think Alfonso Cuarón killed this movie. That was the only Harry Potter he did. But then, I think he came back in the next one. I think he was in like Half-Blood Prince and Goblet of Fire and something like that until he finally kind of met his demise to Helena Bonham Carter. But it just was such a great role, because when you finally, and he doesn't even really do much in the film until like the last 30 minutes of the film, except for like, there's that newspaper clipping of him and he's like screaming at the camera, and it's just like, oh my God, I can't wait till this comes to a head. I can't wait to see Gary Oldman just be batshit crazy, stuck in this prison type thing. And then when he comes on screen, he does not disappoint. He is a lunatic until you find out that, the whole twist of the movie, and it's just, and then he just hits that other gear, and he goes from being that villain, to what the audience thinks is a villain, to being this warm sweetheart. I think this is a very underrated performance, series of performances from Gary Oldman. I loved him as Sirius Black.
I agree, and I have to give a shout out to Alan Rickman, because he was.
Oh God, yeah.
Oh my God, when he died, I cried the ugly cry. The ugly, ugly cry for I call my daughter going, why did you make me watch these movies? I can't. I mean, he was amazing, and he looks like Trent Reznor's father in that those movies. But anyway, he was the other villain who you think is a villain, but really isn't a villain either. But I agree with everything you just said about Gary Oldman's role. It was amazing. It was so well done. It was good. It was so.
Becki?
I got nothing, guys. I saw somebody in the chat say they never got on the Harry Potter bandwagon. I'm with them. I never hopped on. It never spoke to me. I was in the hospital and I watched one of them. I don't remember which one it was, and I was on a lot of drugs like painkillers, so I probably enjoyed it then. We just started. To be fair, we just started reading the very, very first Harry Potter book with Oliver, my son, who's 8, and I hate reading it. I'm not gonna lie. I don't understand why I have to say everybody's crazy name 5,000 times on one page. Like that kind of stuff like drives me crazy. I mean, but I can see. I'm not gonna crap on it because I'll tell you why. I can see it's epic. I can see the amazing performances that go into the films. Some of my favorite actors, obviously Alan Rickman, Ralph Fiennes, are in these films and contribute. And I think if they're choosing to be in these roles, there's something to the franchise. There's something to the series. I just can't speak to it because I haven't seen them.
I went from hating the whole thing. I personally rejected the whole thing without even seeing it, to being forced to watch it and then falling in love with it. I didn't even want to. I fought it for years, but it got me. It got me.
I don't know. I think it's pretty great, but again, I'm the kind of fantasy nerd of the bunch. You like my YouTube channel? You like Magic the Gathering? Be sure to click that subscribe.
Yeah, but
button.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, I'm me. I like that gothy fairy tale stuff. I mean, I'm into that. I'm a huge Disney fan. We know that, and I want to like Harry Potter. It isn't that. It's just it hasn't called to me, and it isn't I haven't connected with it.
Well, the only thing I could say, Beck, to try to sell it to you is, like I said, it starts out like one of those maybe early 90s kind of feel-good family films with magic in it. But then just the fact that it ratchets up and ratchets up and ratchets up, and then, students start dying, main characters start dying in grisly ways, and it takes itself really seriously to the point where it's just like, fuck, I am invested in this ridiculous world. And the Harry Potter universe, and this is coming from someone that hasn't read a sentence on page from Harry Potter, is so rich and so it's so you just get lost in it. It's very reminiscent to like, it's Game of Thrones but for like preteens and teenagers, and by the end of it, it's just like the stakes are so high and the stakes are so real that you're so damn invested towards the end of the series.
I feel you, man. I feel you, and I'll tell you this right now. You're talking to someone that's never even seen an episode of Game of Thrones. Oh, here it goes. I've never. Here it starts. I've never seen Game of Thrones.
Hold on. How do I hang up on someone on this show? Hold on.
I don't even know you now. I don't even know who you are.
Oh, come on.
That's fine.
It's fine.
It is fine.
You know what? I'm just waiting for them all to be somewhere where I can just watch them all at once. I don't have the patience, nor do I have the time to I wish that I could do that thing where I watch something every week and I'm like, yay. Now at this age, I find myself going, oh, just give it all to me all at once. I don't want to deal with it anymore. I can't. I'm like
give me those Netflix shows.
I'm just like an old Jewish lady now.
You have a whole year between seasons of Game of Thrones, but back to Harry Potter real quick. You get so immersed as it goes on because it does pull you in, and you do get immersed in it, and it does go from a kid movie to almost horror movie. And by the time you're done, by the time you're at the end, you're like so. Yeah, I binge watched them and like nothing. I couldn't stop. And part of it was Gary Oldman and Alan Rickman, the cast, but it goes from happy friendly to like horror. It's good. It's good.
Peter Gambon as Gandalf. Oh my God, it's just heart-wrenching. It's just a fantastic series. But we got to move on because we got to jump into another series, and that's the Nolan Batman series. We're knocking that one out of the way. This was another one that I did not put on the Twitter poll, but a lot of people in the comments were just like, Batman, Nolan Batman, Commissioner Gordon. This was a role where this was such an Gary Oldman role, which is why, you know, I've watched these movies so many times, so I didn't like sit there and just rewatch them because I could probably quote most of them from the back of my hand. As comic book movies, they're masterpieces because they transcend even being comic book movies. But his role in these, there's so much other things going on, and just him as Commissioner Gordon, although he's absolutely great, it's just not something that really sticks out to me, which is kind of like the opposite of what Gary Oldman does in films. So although I agree, I love all three of these movies so much, I don't think that this was particularly one of his best roles or memorable roles.
I agree. I think that his performance is fine. I think he does well. I mean, I love the Christopher Nolan Batmans. I enjoy them quite a bit. Actually, I love the visuals. I do like Christian Bale as Batman. He's definitely not the worst Batman we've had. But Commissioner Gordon, I mean, it's a very understated role. It's very minimalistic. He doesn't have a lot of screen time. He is kind of the glue that helps to stick some of the parts of the story together. So we know that he's necessary, and you can't have Batman without Commissioner Gordon at the end. He's like
a grounded POV. He's like the normal person keeping us, the audience, grounded to the story.
Right. So we have to come back to his character every once in a while to figure out what's going on. And then we dive back into Batman's world. So I like the films. I think Gary Oldman is fine. I don't think he like butchered it or anything. I think he did a great job. But again, like you said, it's a very un-Gary Oldman-like role. It's very understated. It's funny because he's been part of these huge epic movies, whether it's Harry Potter or Batman or Dracula, and then it's funny to see him have the backdrop of this epic film, but have such a minimal role.
Yeah, he was very memorable in that. I mean, he was necessary, but he wasn't real memorable.
Right.
He had to be there, but he wasn't real strong in that.
But maybe that's the beauty of him. Maybe that's just the beauty of his talent, is that he can do something like this where it's very minimal, and then he has this huge range where he can go from this to like Winston Churchill. Do you know what I mean? So it's a big jump.
And maybe that was a challenge, like you said, Becki. Like they put him in the role of I think Mason Verger or whatever from Hannibal, and he just like walked on the set and he just wanted to be in a makeup chair for 8 hours just to have this small uncredited cameo role. Maybe it's like I need a challenge. Maybe I want to see if I could do more of a muted kind of everyday man type role. And he seems like a person or a performer that would be interested in a challenge like that.
And he did it well. He did it well. I mean, like I said, he becomes whatever he needs to become, and he does it beautifully. And even if it's understated and the everyday guy, which is odd to see him as an everyday guy.
You know what else is interesting is I think that if you have a production, if Gary Oldman is in your credits, almost like a stamp of prestige. Like it's gonna be a great production if you have Gary Oldman in your credits. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, we know that he is a heavy hitter, and if he's in this role, and he's very particular about the roles he chooses, which is why there's such a weird range, I think, of roles that he's in. Because, you know, I mean, he goes like, as he's kind of, his career and his roles are sort of all over the place. I think it's because he's very particular. He's talked about turning a lot of roles down. And he started listing some of the roles that he turned down, and they were very interesting to me, that we'll talk about a little bit later, but because I'm not going to reveal anything now. But yeah, I think it makes him an interesting person, you know, that he is self-aware enough and he's in control enough of his own career where he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this crappy little role in this little movie, but then I'm going to do this epic, amazing thing in this other film. And the versatility is just undeniable.
You know, I read in an interview where he said he'd rather would have been a musician than an actor. And I thought that was really interesting. And he was good friends with David Bowie, which is really cool too, because I'm a huge Bowie fan. But I thought it was interesting that he in the interview would rather have been a musician than an actor, and he just ended up being an actor. He did a duet with Bowie actually on one of his songs, and I didn't know that. I found that out yesterday. and I can't remember the name of the song, but that's how versatile he is. I mean, acting, music. I mean, there's nothing that he can't do. It seems like.
Yeah, and it looks like, you know, going on the whole theme of
Oh,
hello.
whoa,
man down, man overboard.
There's an earthquake in my studio. Going with the whole theme of challenges and like roles that maybe he wanted to accept, you know, around this specific time is when he started taking a lot of voice actor roles. Like it's like, okay, now I've done all these things, I'm gonna go be a voice actor. So he did like things like Planet 51, he did Kung Fu Panda, and he also did there was another one, A Christmas Carol, the Robert Zemeckis thing.
That was actually really good. That film was great because the animation was so interesting, and that the animated characters actually looked like the actors.
Yeah, it's a Zemeckis film.
Right, but right. And it's just, I don't know. I think that even Jim Carrey did a beautiful job in that film.
Sure.
So.
Well, yeah, I mean, you put the two most prolific character actors together, it's going to be pretty good times.
No, he just did a for a Netflix movie made for Netflix called Tao. He plays this evil artificial intelligent robot guy, and it's a voice actor role, and it's actually, I didn't like it, but we're not there yet. So anyway.
What were you going to say, Beck?
I forgot.
Sorry.
I forgot. All right. Fair enough. The next one I'm going to talk about, like in between all these voice acting roles, he did a film called Book of Eli, and Book of Eli is something that I just watched for the very first time yesterday. And, you know, I have a bunch of nerds in the chat room, and that's okay. We smell our own. This is the closest we'll ever get to a Fallout film. The thing that saved Book of Eli for me was the setting. The setting was incredible. It was done by the Something Brothers. They're the ones that do like Dead Presidents and all these other kind of like politically charged films. But Book of Eli, quick synopsis. It centers around this mysterious, you know, kind of gunslinger-esque character by the name of Eli, which you don't find out till way later, till you see his name on a backpack. He is heading west, kind of like, you know, the world 30 years before just went through something called the Bright, or the explosion. I don't know. I think it was called the Bright, which is basically a nuclear holocaust.
Post-apocalyptic world.
Yeah. It's everything's dystopian. Everything looks terrible. And basically, he you know, Eli gets to Lancaster, California.
It hasn't changed much either.
There it is. Actually, it really looked like fucking Parablossom, if I'm just gonna be honest.
Exactly.
Oh God, that's what you want to go, like, film post-apocalyptic dystopian film. Go to Parablossom, California. You'll have fun on the way in because of the dips. But this film, I thought Denzel did great. I thought Gary Oldman, you know, I'll get to him in a second. I thought it was kind of bad. I thought the premise was kind of stupid and loose, and it had a lot of plot holes to it. I like how badass they made Denzel Washington, and he did it. Like, people were trying. Gary Oldman was really trying, and Gary Oldman, I can't believe, but we totally skipped over Leon the Professional.
Oh my God!
I know, right?
Why don't we do that?
Hold on.
I know. Even though we already talked about it on Natalie Portman, but I mean, it's definitely worth talking about again, specifically pinpointing in on his performance this time. But, you know, I think, Becki, you said his performance in Leon the Professional was sweaty. He was just like super sweaty and like stinky in this one.
He was horrible. It was disgusting. He was a disgusting human being. Drugs and nastiness and murdering, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
How absurd the plot is of this movie. I think that the role of Carnegie, his character it made the most sense. And I loved, like I said, like a lot of it I really loved because it reminded me of like Fallout, the movie. Fallout's a video game for the uninitiated. But I like how they had to check everyone's hands to see, you know, if people were crazy cannibals. And talk about Peter Gabon. He was, you know, Dumbledore was a fucking cannibal in this film. there was a lot to love, but I just thought that everyone kind of shit the bed. It was kind of a weak script, and Gary Oldman did the best he could.
Really, I liked it. I saw it years ago. I rewatched it, and the whole Bible premise, that's like not my thing, but I kind of let that go and watched the movie for what it was. And Denzel did a great job, and Gary Oldman did a great job as this, he was this evil, nasty, gross guy trying to run this little city and make more cities. And it was the last Bible left, and he wanted this Bible. And it turned out, we all know it was in Denzel's head anyway. But I kind of liked that movie, even though I'm like not religious and I could care less. But I really liked it. I thought it was good.
I wasn't blown away. I'm kind of with Jonathan on this one. Like, I just kind of feel like it kind of fell short somewhere, where I felt everyone did like a fine job. It was fine, but there was really definitely some things lacking in this film. I'll tell you, I did love Gary Oldman in this film. But again, he's fantastic at playing these disgusting, despicable bad guys. I mean, he is a bit typecast. But what I think what is unique about him is that he is, again, you're watching Gary Oldman, you forget he's English. You forget he's got all this like Shakespearean training. You forget when he's playing a downright dirty motherfucker, you're there. Like, that's the thing. And I think he does that well in this film. Now, I will tell you, I felt really old when I saw Jennifer Beals playing Mila Kunis's mom. I was like, oh my God. Yeah. Like, I'm feeling really old right now. And I also am a little confused as to why he needed such a large arrow to kill a scrotum cat. I don't get that. But that's another thing. I don't know, whatever. It is what it is.
Hashtag scrotum cat.
Hashtag scrot cat. Scrot cat. So yeah, I mean, those are the questions I have about when this is the things that pop in my head when I watch these movies. I'm like, that's a big arrow for a tiny little cat that has no fur.
Dude, like the first like minute 30 watching it, I'm like, oh fuck, what am I signed up for? Yes. Is this 300 again? Like
the first 3 minutes when he kills the cat, I'm thinking, oh, Walking Dead. We're killing cats to eat, and here we go.
But see, that's the thing. I'm kind of like over the post-apocalyptic genre right now. I just think everybody needs to just stop for a second, because you know why? I'll tell you why. It's because no one's doing anything progressive. No one's doing anything different or unique. It's all they're all smelling each other's farts, and they're all kind of just doing it. It's all in this big melting pot right now.
But I think it was, I thought the premise was fine, and I like the premise because post-apocalyptic done right is great. And I thought they had all the ingredients to make a great soup, and then they just didn't. They just, like, right before, it went out to serve at the table, someone like threw like a cup of salt in it, and I'm like, oh, come on. Like, you had all these things. I think it was the Hughes brothers or whatever. And it was just like, you had this, like the cool bandits, like the ambushes and the whole house with the cannibals. You had all these like good, tasty bits. And I'm like, yes, I am totally in. And then it just sucks. And then it's just like, why did he die? And why did they have to shave him like Gandhi to lay on a couch? Why? Why would she leave, there to go back to Lancaster? I just don't fucking get anything about this movie. I thought it was just had like the most potential. It was like someone handed me like a plate that was worth like $40,000 made of solid gold, and then you lifted it up, and it was someone took like a cat shit on my plate, and I was so upset about it.
Oh, so
I will not eat cat poop.
Yeah, we love this movie, is what you're saying?
Fuck yeah. Someone says, see the road. That's an apocalypse for your heart. Fucking A. Eric is right in the chat. The road is doing post-apocalyptic everything correctly.
But I love, like, Mad Max is the most iconic post-apocalyptic film ever. And I gotta tell you, I like both Mad Maxes. I love Tom Hardy. I know that some of your audience are not Tom Hardy fans, but I am. I think Tom Hardy is fucking amazing. But that's.
Well,
no one will argue, whether you're a Tom Hardy fan or not. No one will argue that Mad Max Fury Road is a bad.
I hate Mel Gibson, but I love the original Mad Max, but I don't like Mel Gibson.
I hate Mel Gibson too, but the original Mad Max is amazing.
Sure. Yeah. No, and that's two great examples. But that's what this movie thought it was both. this movie thought it was The Road, and it thought it was Fury Road, and it came out, I think, before both of them. So maybe those two filmmakers are just like, hey, there's something there. Let's make this movie good. And thank God that happened.
Right.
Ugh, fucking Book of Eli.
Yeah.
Let's see. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Not me.
I saw it.
Hey, go for it.
Am I the only one that saw it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, well, listen, my review is going to be weird because that one is, I believe wholeheartedly that film is way over my head. I know that I watched it. I will say that I had a little bit of food poisoning when I watched it, so I was like feeling.
I love how there's caveats.
I can't say that I was 100% invested when I was watching it, but I will say I do love Cumberbatch. What's his name? Not Engelbert. Engelbert Humperdinck. Benedict Cumberbatch. Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh my God.
Whatever.
Prince Humperdinck.
Humperdinck. Yeah.
Whatever.
Oh
I think he was great. I from what I can tell, they were fine. Now I think Gary Oldman's performance in this is, again, it's very understated. He plays sort of a calm, understated guy in this film, and it's a little different. But I don't have any. I don't think that I have a reliable. I can't tell you. I know it was about Russian spies in Britain. I know that much. I know some people die. There's some really good gore in it, which I enjoyed. That's not intelligent review or feedback by any means.
Stuff happened on screen and stuff.
Stuff happened. Some people died, and Engelbert Humperdinck is in it. Yay!
Sold. I'm in.
Yay! But I know that it was nominated. I know he was nominated for an Oscar for this film. I know that it was credited. It was critically acclaimed. That's what I can tell you.
That's all.
It's long. It's very long, and it's not like an action film by any means. There's a lot of tension. That's all I can tell you. But what the tension's about, I don't know.
I have no.
Hey, at least I watched it. You two didn't even try.
I tried. I did try. I watched the first 10 minutes and I turned it off.
I didn't care. I watched The Fifth Element 8 times in prep for this.
Yeah, look at this one's watching Fifth Element 8 times. This other one couldn't even get through the first 5 minutes when the guy gets killed.
My fault. I was watching it, and the channel I was watching it on cut me off.
This show is a clusterfuck now.
So what? It's a clusterfuck. It's all. Oh shit.
She's got glasses in her hands.
No, I don't.
Last week it was a comb. Everybody, I just want to point this out. My sister, if she has anything in her, like close to her, she puts it in her hand and waves it around. Go back, and this is a great excuse to go back and watch last week's episode or last episode of Real Actors, because Debbie has a comb in her hand and she's like whipping it around. She's
don't like you at all right now.
She's teaching a class.
She's leading the orchestra.
You know what? You both can eat me.
Oh man. So
so Chad was just there. I didn't even know it was in my hand. Things happen. I talk with my hands. I might as well be Italian.
So next week, chat, what is The Walking Dead gonna have in her hand? Leaving the.
She's like Bob Dole. Give her a pen. She's like Bob Dole.
Oh,
Bob Dole.
No, not Bob.
Oh my God. All right.
Everything down. I have the free hand. The things in my hand.
So I don't even remember. The last movie was so forgettable. I don't remember what it was. So Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. You do hate this series?
I watched the first 10 minutes.
I can't do.
I cannot stand the CGI monkeys. I was done.
You guys are assholes. This is like the best CGI in any movie ever. Ugh. Okay. I've only seen the first 2. I didn't see the last one. I don't know why. I'm getting to it. I love these films. However, if we're just talking Gary Oldman, super forgettable. He was just the human bad guy. He was almost like so muted. He was like Commissioner Gordon again in this role, but as a kind of a bad guy. Although he's like this political. I don't even know if he's political. He's a humanist. He's just trying to make sure that his.
He's like anti-ape.
Well, yeah, because the apes are kind of in control, and he's trying to make sure that his complete, species isn't wiped out by these apes. So you could relate a lot to him as the bad guy in this, but there's an ape bad guy too in Koba, and he just completely steals the show. And he is way more riveting than anything poor Gary Oldman's doing in this film. It's not Gary Oldman's fault. He's fine. it's just the role, and it's really unfortunate. I would have rather seen Gary Oldman do like mocap or something like Andy Serkis does for these films. I think that would have been more riveting, but there's just not a whole lot to say about his role in this film, because it's just kind of, he's just a dude. He's like a political strategist, and you could relate to him, and he's also kind of a bastard, and it's like, it's unfortunate.
I didn't miss anything. I just couldn't. The first 5 minutes I was done.
These films are so good. I don't know what your problem is with these films.
I just can't with apes. I just can't.
John, do you even like the Burton ones?
No, the Burton one sucks ass, but these are great.
I haven't watched these, honestly. I don't have the hatred Debbie does. I could take it or leave it. But I will say I know that the Burton ones were terrible. But
yes. Well, there's only one. There's only one Burton one.
Yeah, well, whatever. That's all the world needs, obviously. But definitely one of the Burton downswings. But I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it.
You're not missing anything.
Wow.
But you only saw the first 5 minutes.
That's all you need. You'll see the first 5 minutes too. You'll be like, oh my god.
Eric Williamson is our chat warrior. He just said doling out the Bob Dole references.
Yes.
So good.
Thank you.
So good. All right. Criminal. I didn't see it.
No.
I saw it.
Go for it.
Wait. Criminal. Who's in it again? I saw so many Gary. I saw so many Gary Oldman. I obviously, but who? What was this one about again? Oh my god, my memory. I watched so many Gary Oldman movies this week.
Oh, this was the Kevin Costner one that you liked.
Oh yes.
No.
Okay, all right. This movie was terrible. This movie was so bad.
This was not Tin Cups.
This was so bad. But I will tell you though. Here's the deal. Gary Oldman. This is actually, I think, my least favorite Gary Oldman performance ever in the history of ever. All he really does to the whole movie, he goes, "Tell me," and just like screams the whole time. Like it's not really a performance. It's just Gary Oldman walking around flailing his arms, being an angry police officer, going, "I need to know things," and that was it. I mean, that's the whole role. Him spitting a lot and yelling at people. Basically, Kevin Costner plays like a murdering, terrible criminal on death row, and then this is like face off, but worse.
Ooh.
So here Ryan Reynolds, he's a spy in the beginning, and he screws up and he winds up getting killed, but he has all this information in his head that they need, right? So he's not brain dead, or he's dead, but his brain is still in there. So they take Kevin Costner because he's the only one that has some kind of something that they need to transfer Ryan Reynolds' memories into his own brain. So they do this experiment. They bring Kevin Costner in, and he's this terrible criminal guy, and they transfer Tommy Lee Jones is the doctor, is the professor guy that is in charge of the experiment, and he's like supposed to be this old, nice, feeble guy. And so they put the memories into Kevin Costner's head, and he's recovering, and he's saying, "Oh, I have this terrible headache." And like minutes after he wakes up from the procedure, Gary Oldman is in the room going, "Tell me everything you know," and he's screaming at Kevin Costner. And Kevin Costner's all, "I have a headache," and he's like, "But you need to tell me," and he's like, "But I still have a headache." And he's like, "But tell me," and he's like, "But hey, can that doctor over there give me a pill because I have a headache?" And that's like the whole right. This is like a whole scene where this is going back and forth. And Tommy Lee Jones is going, "You're yelling at him, and you shouldn't be yelling at him. You're yelling at him, and you shouldn't be yelling at him." And then Gary Oldman's all, "This didn't work," and just like walks out and goes, "All right, kill him in the bed." So obviously they don't kill him in the bed. The guy gets away, and it obviously worked. And the film is him going, "I remember my wife and children," but he's in the murderer body. It's so bad. It is just the worst.
You know why? Because Kevin Costner's in it.
Let me tell you though. Let me tell you something. And I don't like Kevin Costner, but in his defense, he's not terrible in this. I like him as this sort of grunting, oafish bad guy, which is a little different because he's always trying to play like that lead heroic role, which always made me want to vomit. But I really liked him in this role as the bad guy. I mean, he's beating the shit out of people. He's knocking people's faces off. He's murdering people. It's kind of fun to watch like a bad Kevin Costner. So I will say that in his defense in this movie, he grunts a lot too. It's like a lot of grunting.
His aura of being there is what made Gary.
But he doesn't have the Kevin Costner aura in this movie. He's actually like he's believable. Gary Oldman's role in this movie, I did not really enjoy, which is really hard for me to say. But if I'm going to be honest, he's not great in this film.
So don't.
And I don't know if it was
Criminal.
because of this. Don't watch Criminal. I mean, well, you can. I mean, if you're had a few and you just, whatever.
This doesn't sound worth my hour and a half of time.
I wouldn't pay for it or anything. No.
I can do better things with an hour and a half and watch Kevin Costner.
That's what they should put on the actual Blu-ray sleeve. You shouldn't
right?
pay for it, but well,
like I said, if you've had a couple,
watch it for free.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to round it out to our last film that we're going to discuss, and then I think Becky's got some trivia for us. But we're going to talk about the film that finally did it for him. Let's talk a little bit about makeup Oscars, Becki, because that was a point of contention from last week's director's cut with Jason Alt and Manny. We were talking about how Alfonso Cuarón got his makeup Oscar that he should have gotten for Children of Men, but he got it for Gravity. And I tend to kind of agree. I think there's something to that. But I definitely... I didn't tell either of you what I thought of Darkest Hour, so I kind of want to let you guys go first. But here you go.
Becki, take it.
I was not going to bring this up because I'm a nice person. But
God.
I will say this. I actually watched that episode live with you and Jason, and I saw him and Manny. And Manny too. Sorry, Manny's that's the first time I ever saw him, so I didn't remember.
Me too.
But so great episode with everybody, great feedback. However, it did strike a nerve with me because Jason mentioned that anytime a film wins a makeup award, it's literally, and I'm going to do exactly what he did, a wank award. So here's my pushback to that. It's not even a pushback. This is my official response. I am a professional makeup artist. I have been for 15 years. I am not going to go on a tangent about this, but I am going to give people some information. Makeup artists are some of the hardest working people in production that I have ever met or been around in my life. And they get a lot of slack and not a lot of recognition. Makeup artists' job starts long before the actual shooting starts, especially if they're doing practical makeup for large productions with prosthetics, with all of those things. They are creating, they're sculpting for hours and hours, months and months long, and doing tests and screen tests, all these things long before we even say action on the set. So when someone says that, and I have worked on huge productions where we have 400 actors that have to be transformed in a very short amount of time. You guys know this. And I've worked on tiny little, and I've done like private clients where I'm only doing one makeup. It's always work and it's always hard. And it's probably the least understood or appreciated art form that there is. And this is not a pretentious thing. This is actually just information. This is a fact. Countless hours on your feet, and you are paid to be creative on command. You know how hard that is sometimes? People don't realize how hard that is. So with all that said, I did take it personally when there was that sort of like, makeup artists or whatever. We're not whatever. We actually are extremely hardworking people, and we contribute so much to the look of a character and the film. Sometimes the actor, once they see themselves in the makeup and they see the transformation, that's when they really understand what their role or how they're going to play that role is going to be, what it's going to be like. Okay. So it's really important that we understand that. It takes a lot of people to make a film.
Okay. So let me stop you there, because I think you misunderstood what the comment was about. Makeup Oscar is what he said. And what I agree, okay, because I totally see where you took that, and now I feel bad that you took it that way, because he meant like Alfonso Cuarón should have gotten his Oscar for Children of Men because of how much of a masterpiece that was. So instead of doing that, because he didn't win that year because The Departed won, it was a makeup, like it was a do-over Oscar for Gravity. They're like, Gravity wasn't as great as Children of Men, but we feel bad, and you made a good film this year, so we're just going to make sure that you get it. That's what makeup meant
But no, I understand that part. It's just that, you know, these guys work so hard and they weren't even recognized by the Academy until very later. So when they do win these awards, it is so much more significant than I think the people realize. So a comment like that, sure, he may have had a different intention, but it came across as, I mean, I don't know him, you know, it's not like, oh, that guy is whatever. It's just like, I just want it to be very clear that when we say these things, it takes, like I said, it takes a lot of people to create these productions that we see as a whole. Yeah. And it's really easy to write a certain group of people off when we don't understand what their actual job is. And that's my point. And so we just have to be careful, I think, sometimes when we're speaking. I mean, I say a lot of crap on here where I'm like, I just said I hated Juliana Moore and you almost fell out of your seat. So I get it.
Literally.
I'm generally not easily offended. I just wanted to make that clear. But that's all. That's it. I'm done.
Now it's my mission to put you and Jason on a show together.
Do it. Bring it on. Bring it on.
I want to watch that one.
All right, Deb, what did you think of? Well, first, Deb, why don't you tell us a little rundown of Darkest Hour?
I thought it was probably his most immersive role, as far as his appearance, as far as his transformation, as far as his acting ability was incredible. I honestly didn't know a whole lot about Winston Churchill going into it. But it was like a history lesson, and you couldn't even tell it was him. Going back to what Becki said, the makeup was so incredible. You couldn't even tell. You couldn't even tell it was Gary Oldman. I mean, I cried. It was so emotional. It was one of his. It had to be his best role, I think, as a performer yet. I mean, in so many ways, he was so involved in that role, and so he became Winston Churchill. I mean, he really did, and it was incredible. It was emotional, like I said, emotional, and it's hard to find the right words right now, but it was amazing. It was amazing.
So what made you so? Before we go to Becki and get her thoughts on the film, what made it so emotional for you?
The ending. There are just certain scenes that, and I can't remember exactly what scenes right now because I'm drinking, but there were certain scenes that made me cry, and I wish I could tell you which ones they were. Becki knows which ones they are, but I'm drinking right now, and I don't remember which ones they were because I'm drawing a blank.
That's fair.
Oh, is it my turn?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Am I the designated driver?
Oh no, you are. I cried. I don't know why I cried. So remind me of why I cried.
Okay. Well, you and I talked about this after we watched it. Our sentiment was very, very similar. We were on the same wavelength regarding this film. This film, to me, captured the intensity of those moments that led up to, I mean, one of the most significant battles and rescue missions in America, not American history, in world history. I will say that I did not see Gary Oldman in this movie. I had no idea he was even in this film. I saw Winston Churchill. I think that this performance was completely immersive. I was hook, line, and sinker watching Winston Churchill. I know that this was a complete method role for him. He got, from what I understand, he got nicotine poisoning or something from smoking too many cigars. And I just, as the last 20 minutes of the film, I had goosebumps. Like, I mean, the film was so good. And this is why it was so emotional. I think it really brought us there. There's the scene where he's sitting in this closet begging the president of the United States for help. And it's just heartbreaking. And it's just, you can feel the desperation. He knows all of these people were going to be murdered. And he knew that all of these people were being murdered. And he's in charge of it. He knew he was not popular. He knew all of this. It was emotional. And Gary Oldman captured it so perfectly. I don't have the words, I don't think, to completely describe the feeling that I had watching this, other than holy shit. Like,
yeah,
I mean, I didn't even need to see the film to Winston Churchill's like the end of his life. I didn't need to see that. It was really all about, that's what the movie's about, The Darkest Hour. That's why it's called that. It's really all about these moments leading up to, was it Dunkirk? And I just, oh my God, his performance is flawless. I don't know how anybody, I mean, yes, then the makeup every day. I mean, that is another thing. His prosthetic was made from scratch every freaking day. And in high definition, watching his face moving up close, everything, you could see every pore, every threaded hair in his face. I mean, everything from his makeup to his speech and the way that he like had the labored breathing from walking as a heavy person, you know, I mean, everything, he had everything down. And I just was completely blown away.
Plus, Churchill was an alcoholic as well, and he had he
depicted that pretty well too.
He had everything. Yeah. And there's one scene where he takes the underground to go to where is he going? He's going to
Parliament.
Yeah, and he's talking to like the regular citizens, and it was one of the best scenes in the movie, I thought.
He's in the subway.
Yeah, and he's talking just to the regular guy, and it was amazing. He kind of blended in, and it just showed he was a regular guy. And the scene after that, where, and I can't remember exactly what happened because I'm drinking, and that was another emotional moment for me, and I wish I could remember exactly why.
He goes to Parliament, and after speaking to the citizens on the subway, he goes to Parliament and just completely bypasses his war panel, and goes into Parliament and just starts speaking to them and tells them it's the people that want the fight. We can't just lay down and let the Germans come and do this. And he gains all the respect. I mean, and before that, I love the scene where the king comes in and sits next to him in his own home, in this sort of modest home, because they didn't have a lot of money. And I mean, modest by who he was rubbing elbows with at the time. And he sits with him and he goes, I get it now. And I didn't get you before, but I get you now. And you have my support. And this, I'm getting emotional now. This like expression that Gary Oldman gives to the king, like he looks over at him and doesn't say anything for a moment and just absorbs the moment where the king says, you now have my support. And it just changes everything for him, because he's been fighting against the grain this whole time, but he knows what needs to be done and everything is on the line. And then when the king sits next to him and says, I'm here, I got your back. And Oldman's, without even saying anything, just his expression. And I'm just like, oh my God, this moment, this is like a beautiful acting moment. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it.
Yeah, me too. You just gave it to me too. I mean, it was incredible. It was, and no one wanted him as prime minister. I mean, no one wanted him. They didn't want him. I mean, they didn't want him. But I don't know. I don't have the words.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. I completely agree with a lot. Well, I agree with a lot of what you guys said. I think that the supporting cast in this was pretty strong. I love Ben Mendelsohn. Ben Mendelsohn is just great. He's the one that played the king, and I liked that it was like those three were always those were the like his cabinet members, including the king, were always against him. And the most powerful one, the one that he had the least connection to, was the one that came and kind of had us back in the end. Chamberlain and Stannis Baratheon constantly trying to overthrow what was going on. That was great. I thought his wife did a great job. Okay, so as far as Gary Oldman's performance goes, I thought it was great. But I feel like it was a little much. And I know he was doing, Winston Churchill very well, but he was just I just feel like he looked like Dan Aykroyd from Big Trouble, and he was just doing he was doing eyes to so much and so over, like everyone else is like super serious and super like everything is dire and stuff, and like they would say something to him and he'd kind of look at him and give him this like Mike Meyer-esque in makeup like look, and I was just like, what? Yeah, I don't know.
I didn't get that at all.
It was taking me out of it.
I get what you're saying. But here's what I think.
And I know Winston Churchill was larger than life too.
Yeah, yes. And that's where I was going with that. That's the point. I think that the character, I think that Winston Churchill was a character. I think that that's why it was so hard for them to take him seriously and take orders from him and really trust him, because I think he was a goofy, weird, oafish fat guy that just kind of like, was like, he was not refined in any way. He had a big mouth. He said outrageous things. And I think that as far as Gary Oldman's performance, I think he captured it perfectly. But I think that there was a balance to him. I see where John's coming from, but I also see that there was this amazing vulnerability that Gary Oldman sort of shone through, where at the core, this man wanted the best for his people and cared about his country. And I think Gary Oldman, I think he showed that sort of vulnerable side or vulnerability through the makeup and through the character. It broke my heart. So, it got me in the feels.
Well, one of my favorite moments is when he's walking through and Lily James and her friend are laughing at him because of the newspaper clipping of him doing this, which means up your ass or whatever.
Right.
And he overhears and he kind of catches her in the hallway. He's like, "No, seriously, tell me." And she's like, No, I can't. And then he just like cracks up and laughs. I thought that was a really good moment. There was a lot of good moments, but then there was a certain, and I completely agree with you, that one scene where he's sitting there in the room on the phone talking to the president of the United States, who was Teddy Roosevelt at the time. They're talking about, or he's trying to barter and he's just getting no help at all. And there's a lot of that, like I have to put on a face for the country, almost to a fault. And although he knows, just like everyone else, that he might have to enter peace talks with Hitler, and that's a crazy thing to have to consider, but there was just certain moments where it just like the scenes kind of ran on and everyone's super, super into it. And he's just like, I don't know. And blah, blah, blah. And it was just like so over the top. I was like, I can't. Like, it's just like, I can't take this seriously. This is Mike Myers right now. Like, this is an Austin Powers character.
No.
You cannot compare Mike Myers to Winston Churchill.
Hey, Mike Myers in Inglourious Basterds is one of the most transformative roles ever. So he could do it too. But I just was just like, God, he is like, he's not fat bastard. He's just.
Oh my God.
How can that even come into your head? That bastard watching.
It's Mike Myers in Judge, whatever his name is, from Big Trouble. I'm like, he's fucking Dan Aykroyd right now.
Nothing but trouble. You're not even in the thing right.
Whatever.
Problems now. No.
Yeah. I think Darkest Hour was probably. I don't know how he's going to top this film. To be honest, I honestly don't know. I think this movie was.
Epitome of his career.
It was nothing. His performance to me was nothing short of epic in this film.
This was. I don't think this was his best role. I just think that this was. This was his starring role, and of course, like you can't give him an Academy Award to be Drexel in True Romance because he's in it for 5 minutes, but. There was other roles of Gary Oldman. And again, we skipped over The Professional. I thought Zorg was a better role, a Gary Oldman role than Darkest Hour.
Zorg was fun. This Darkest Hour.
This was too much fun. I'm going to eat a sausage with the king.
No.
Oh, God damn, John.
Hold on. It wasn't a movie where he had 20 minutes of screen time. It wasn't a quick role. He was the movie in the entire movie.
Right.
Which is unlike a lot of his other roles. And you can't compare it to anything else he's done because he was the movie. He was the movie. And you didn't even see, like Becki said, you didn't even see Gary Oldman. All you saw was Winston Churchill. And he did display the vulnerability. And he did, there's nothing, I can't think anything bad about this movie. And Fat Bastard, to compare him to Fat Bastard. I'm like,
oh, yeah, that's bad.
John.
So bad.
I don't know. I watched it. I'm just like, okay, do I need to watch it again? Because I just don't. I'm not saying it's a bad film. It just seemed like the whole movie is just people talking in rooms, which I am for. but this one just didn't grab me because because the whole time I'm waiting for Dunkirk to happen, like actual Dunkirk to happen. And later, after I read after the movie, I kind of looked it up on the history of what this was. And it wasn't until like a couple years later that the actual, Dunkirk thing when the Americans landed and all that, the whole time I'm waiting, I'm like, okay, so Pearl Harbor is going to happen anytime. So that's going to be the fuel to kind of light the fire to get everyone on board. And that just never happened. So it was just this kind of speech in front of a bunch of assholes at the end. And then he just walks out of the room. I was so underwhelmed by this film.
You know what? Here's the thing though. Historically speaking, you're trying to put all of World War II in one film. And that's not what this film was about at all. This film was about these crucial moments where England made the decision not to surrender to the Nazis.
Sure.
And this was a whole different, no, World War II did not begin and end in this film. That's not what this is about. It's really truly about
the beginning.
This big decision and what role England was going to play in Europe's fight against the Germans. And where was America? Fucking nowhere. Not until the very end. They like run in at the end and be like, hey, here we are after you've been screwed for however many years. And by the way, there's only 6 million Jews. It's all fine. But I mean, this is, that's what this film is about. It's about the moments that really in the decision making. And it's a lot of people talking in rooms because I would imagine that's probably what was going on before this big battle. Now we know that England got hit, and then these people had
out of them.
Yeah. So we know that these people had to make the decision not to go into peace talks with Hitler. And you know what? Maybe this decision, arguably, is what helped win World War II in the end. Is that England didn't surrender, because you have to think about what the British Empire meant in terms of trade and everything else. They didn't have the biggest army.
If England and France would have had those peace talks with Mussolini, it probably would have turned out differently. But and I understand it had it had gravitas to it. It was just delivered in such and again, I love movies about people talking in rooms. Hence our Kevin Smith show. That's all Kevin Smith is snappy dialogue. I just felt like, to keep my attention for this long, and this is another thing that I just kind of want to come out with, is biopics have never been my thing for some reason. I don't know. It's just like watching other actors, unless they do it so well, and I'm not saying Gary Oldman didn't, unless they just completely destroy the biopic. It's just not my cup of tea. So I don't know. It wasn't a bad film. I mean, did he deserve to win an Oscar? I think he should have won 2 Oscars before this, but I'm not mad that he won an Oscar for it. I'm just like, this is what got Gary Oldman. That's been, he debuted in 1982, his first Oscar. I just didn't see it.
No, and we're wrong for attacking you for not like.
No, please.
I'm not attacking. I think his description's hilarious. I ain't mad at him, but I don't agree. I think that the film is a masterpiece, and I think that it captured the tension of those and those vulnerable moments leading up to some decision making that was more significant than just showing gratuitous war footage. Which we've seen. We know what World War II looked like. We've seen it. We know. We don't know more. We don't know as much about these moments.
The war rooms.
Before. Yeah. Right. Exactly. So I think this was a relevant film. I think it was an interesting film. I mean, I hate to pull the Jew card, but anything World War II for me kind of. With our family, I think it strikes a chord. Anything that's World War II related always strikes a chord with me. So it's very interesting to see the moving parts that don't normally get addressed.
Right. And he portrayed the impossible situation he was in very well. I mean, it was a very different, the situation he was in, the decisions he had to make, the opposition to it was a hard place to be for him.
Hey, Schindler's List is one of my favorite films of all time, and that's not just because it's showing you the dirty, maybe that's it. Maybe I'm more of a shower than I like more of a shower than a teller kind of film as far as those period pieces go. But Schindler's List is an absolute masterpiece where this was just like kind of watching a play. I don't know. It's just I'm gonna die on this hill because I'm sure you guys are both not the only ones that are yelling. Even though Eric, our last person like in the chat, is just like, yeah, I agree with underwhelmed. But yeah,
it's okay. You don't have to like it. But the Shop Ballad reference is hilarious.
So we've gone pretty long. So why don't we wrap this up? And we should now in retrospect, when we had the longer this goes, it's understandable we'll start kind of losing live viewers, but we should probably do the trivia earlier on next time.
I agree. Do we have anybody in chat to even do trivia?
We got Eric.
Should we do it?
Eric?
I mean, for people that are going to watch it later, or should we save it for... Damn it! I made trivia questions. We're going to ask trivia questions.
All right, go ahead.
First.
All right, you guys ready?
We got to do this halfway through next time, I think.
I think so too. Okay, so here's the first question. You guys have already seen the questions, so it's not even like fun for you guys anymore. So maybe
Eric has confirmed that he's still here.
Okay, maybe next time I'll keep all the trivia questions to myself. So Gary Oldman turned down a major role in what Tim Burton classic?
This is riveting for we're all just like looking at our chats, just like, is he gonna say it? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Edward Scissorhands. So it was really funny because I watched this interview with him talking about this, and he was talking about roles that he had turned down. And he mentioned that he was offered Edward Scissorhands very early on in the production stages, obviously in the casting stages of the film. And he said he read the script and he was like, I don't get it. Like, there's a guy, there's like an Avon lady, and then there's this dude with like scissors for hands, and he totally didn't get it, and he did not connect with it at all. So he turned it down. Obviously, Johnny Depp picked it up, and then he watched the film later and went, "Oh yeah, that's awesome. Now I get it." But he did not connect with the script at all. And
what role was he going for?
Edward.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
wow.
He was considered for Edward. They approached him. And he said that he read the script and it didn't make any sense to him. He couldn't get on board. So that was that.
So Gary or Johnny Depp couldn't beat Gary Oldman in our poll for who we did the real actors for, but he did win the role for Edward Scissorhands. So it seems to only be because Gary Oldman turned it down. So all right, on to the next question. Let's do 2 more just because we have no one to ask.
Yeah, all right. What iconic singer cast Gary Oldman in the lead of his one of his last music videos?
I know
this one.
I know this one.
You guys both know this one. All right, then just say it.
David Bowie.
David Bowie. He's in The Next Day. He plays a priest in a whorehouse for priests. It's really interesting.
Such a good video.
It is. I one more question. I actually like this question. So what rockumentary spotlighting an indie icon who also gave him a bloody lip upon meeting him for the first time did Gary Oldman direct?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go ahead.
That'd be Jack White Unstage, and you can find the footage of him giving him a bloody lip on YouTube.
Yeah, it's crazy. He just attacks him. He jumps.
It's hilarious.
Totally jumps him.
All right, that's all I got for now.
I love the old Bowie or the like last Bowie videos, especially the last one that he ever did.
I can't watch those.
God, it's just heartbreaking.
They are heartbreaking.
It was just like watching the Johnny Cash Hurt cover.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
It gets me every time.
Same.
Talk about emotion. Oh my, nope.
All right. Well, thank you, Eric. Well, if I had anything to give away for this, being our last man standing in the chat, I would. So I'll just scream your name from the Twitter mountaintops when this is over. Thanks for sticking with us for the almost 2 hours of Gary Oldman talk. But hey, this was a lot of fun. I feel like we went really deep. My 4-year-old is off camera right now trying to shoot me with a Nerf gun. We went really deep with Gary Oldman. There was a lot of films, but I like that we kind of all grab some different ones. And again, it took me preparing for this show to really like realize how great of a character screen actor Gary Oldman really is. So
I fell in love with him all over again. I kind of didn't, and then I watching these movies made me appreciate him so much again. So incredible.
This was the absolute opposite of the Natalie Portman show.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
yep.
Yeah. So I just want to thank both of you. First off, Becki Morgan, professional makeup artist and, talker on films on this show. Where can everyone find you?
I am on Instagram if you want to check out my work there at Rebecca Morgan Creative. I also have a Twitter that's Becki Morgan 1974. I only have a Twitter now because my brother made me get one.
That's right.
I'm teaching children's, not just children's. I'm teaching special effects and Halloween makeup workshops starting next month. So if you're in the Vegas area, if you follow me on my social media, you can sign up for those.
And just tonight, the other sister, usually that moniker goes to Becki, but the other sister tonight.
I'm the other sister now.
Because, Miss better late than never, the Walking Deb, where can everyone find you?
I am on Twitter at the Walking Deb 66 only because my brother made me get a Twitter because I didn't have one. Other than that, you really can't find me anywhere. But I co-host this show. I'm working on the Walker Bites for They Said We Said. That's basically all the places you can find me.
Perfect.
Other than at home. So.
Other than at home. You can find me right here on this very channel. They Said We Said. You could also find me on Twitter at Orzovdone. You could find me on Facebook, Instagram, now on Reddit at r/Orzovdone, which I'm going to be posting this right after this. Thank you again, my co-hosts on Gary Oldman Real Actors. We'll be cooking up who we're going to put on the voting poll, whoever you guys want to see talked about next on Real Actors. So for everyone, for The Walking Dead, Becki Morgan, I'm John. We'll see you at the movies.